everybody, welcome back or welcome to my channel. Today we are reading a Hawks X Reader Recording Troubles by B&H e-writings on Tumblr. I'm going to ask for everyone to look in the description of this video for links and petitions to stop Asian hate crimes in America. And there's also other petitions to sign for Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, trans rights, all that stuff. So yeah, I'll stop wasting your time and let's get into the video. To be honest, you were ecstatic to be able to work under the number 2 hero Hawks, if not surprised he had accepted your application. Your quirk wasn't the normal flying type that he had in his agency, being more focused on head-on-ground attacks. The only answer you could come up with was that you were a diversity hire, or someone meant to even out the abilities of the agency. Well, that, and you had your suspicions that Tokuyami had put a good word in for you. You may be a few years older than him, but babysitting him when he was younger and dealing with his pessimistic life view as he grew older had created quite the bond between you two. When he discovered you were job hunting for a support role, he had been the one to suggest you apply at Hawk's agency, where he was currently interning. It was a long shot, but the chance to work with your best friend and the number 2 hero? Heck yes. Imagine your surprise when you were called in for an interview, and then, after spilling coffee all over yourself and running flat into a wall on the way out, you still got the job. Now here you were, standing in front of Hawk's agency with your neck craned so far back that it almost hurt. It was taller than most agencies, most likely due to the large number of workers who flew, and was by far one of the most welcoming you have seen. The brown bricks stood out, warm among the gray buildings around it, with wide arching windows that gave it a touch of class and showed off the true wealth of the owner through the delicate molding around each pane. You could have stood there all day, staring in awe, but the buzzing of your phone drew you back to reality. Digging around your bag, you produced the loud electronic and flipped it open to see a familiar contact flashing across the screen. "What can I do for you, my pessimistic feathered friend?" You laughed at the sound of Tokuyami grumbling on the other line, surely cursing his choice to call. "I just wanted to make sure you were going to be here on time. I know how hard you sleep, and it wouldn't be the first time you slept through your dozens of alarms." "Aw, you're worried about me. I'm touched." Another round of incoherent mumbling, only broken by a shout and the sound of rustling on his end. "No, Dark Shadow, stop it!" A laugh found its way from your lips, your hand doing a poor job of muffling it as you pictured the entity trying to wrangle the phone from its vessel. Still giggling, you spoke. "I'm right outside, I'll be up in a second." Flipping clothes and pocketing the device with a still yelling Tokuyami, you made your way to the building. As soon as you walked through the front doors, you were greeted by a spacious waiting room leading into a long hallway, ending at a receptionist's desk. After a quick discussion with the kind lady behind the counter, who introduced herself as Yumiko, she handed you your ID badge and gave the directions to what elevator and floor you need. "Welcome to the agency, and if you need anything or have any questions, don't hesitate to find me." The feathered ears on her head perked up as wide yellow eyes stared back from behind the oval glasses. "Thanks, I will." Bouncing over to the elevators, you scanned your badge and entered the mirrored box. Pressing the button for the 6th floor, you couldn't help but admire your reflection. Normally, you chose practicality over fashion, but with today being your first time meeting your coworkers, you decided to dress up a bit, even wearing the gold earrings you saved for special occasions. The further up you went, the more nervous you got. This was the first professional job you had since graduating from UA 2 years ago prior, taking odd jobs from neighbors while you looked for an agency to work at. With life being as it was, though, things kept popping up and happening to keep you from being able to take a permanent job anywhere until now. Well, no time like the present. When the doors to the elevator opened, you stepped out with a new wave of energy, only to trip over the small gap between the floors. Clumsiness strikes it once again, you thought bitterly, as gravity persisted in being gravity, and you continued your journey to the floor. Before your face could meet the hard wood, you found yourself being cradled by a familiar force, almost non-existent, but still there, soft and wrapping itself around you. "Dark!" you exclaimed. The shadow purred in response, continuing to wrap itself around your form, much to the dismay of Tokuyami, who stood just beyond the doors. "I see you're the same as always. That's not very nice of you, my oldest and closest friend." You sighed and dramatically threw your back, allowing Dark Shadow to hold your entire weight. "I think you have bigger issues if I, a teenager, 4 years younger, am your closest friend." "How rude," you gasped. "Did you hear what he said to me, Dark? You would never be that mean, would you?" You continued to smother her with affection, crooning and scratching under her chin, rubbing the spot just above her beak as she leaned in further into your touch. Tokoyami scoffed, turning around and walking away, leaving Dark Shadow and you to catch up. "I've been given permission to give you a tour for the first day. As you can guess, you won't be doing any fighting today." He talked while leading you down the hallway after hallway, turn after turn. You were actually glad he was here to show you around, because you would have gotten lost almost immediately in the maze that was the Hawks Agency. For the next 2 hours, Tokoyami walked you through the various floors and rooms, showing you everything from where the bathrooms and lockers were to the site medic facility and training facility. "And of course we have the offices." He gestured to the cubicles scattered around the top floor, some of which were currently occupied. As you walked past each one, you saw they all had their own personal touches, ranging from photos and plants to posters and figurines, spotting all my merchandise in more than a few. It was amusing in a way of how even grown adults who were heroes themselves still had such a reverence for other heroes. "The new people get the ones closer to the elevators." He nodded back towards said spots, and you noticed there were more empty ones there than anywhere else. "That doesn't sound too bad. At least I'll get to be myself for the most part," you said aloud, prompting your friend to laugh. "You say that now, but they're located the furthest away from Hawk's office, and consequently, the heaters." He tilted his head back, his gaze locking onto your form. "I hope you have some warmer clothes than that. You may be stuck wearing your winter hero costume around when you're doing paperwork." You stuck your tongue out in his direction, receiving nothing in return, as he muttered a quiet, "Childish woman," under his breath, getting on your nerves more than you ever could his. "What's that, Dark?" You leaned in closer to the silent shadow, cupping your ear to better hear his unspoken words. "Why, yes, I do agree." You smirked at the back of his head, loudly speaking. "He does remind me of a cute little angsty teen with his adorable little cape." His shoulders tensed, and you knew you had him. Continuing on, you pretended not to notice the warnings. "Yeah, the whole cap thing is very mysterious. I bet he gets all the e-girls." "FN," he warned. "Oh, and that dark and brooding personality. Very nice touch to his hero persona. I bet he'll be in a calendar very soon." By now you had gained the attention of others, some of whom were beginning to chuckle, as well as much to Tokoyami's dismay. The blush spread across his cheeks, barely noticeable, but still there, his cape doing little to hide as he sunk further in. "The gossip columns will be all over him, trying to get a glimpse into the life of the handsome and mysterious..." Your teasing was cut off as he roughly shouldered you in an attempt to get you to stop your embarrassing ramble. A bit too hard, it turns out, as you weren't expecting that heavy force and were thrown quite harder than he had intended. Unfortunately, you had been walking around the outskirts of the cubicle, paused right in front of one of the many doors leading to the offices of the more prominent agency members. And of course, the door would choose to open at that exact moment you were shoved. Instead of falling into the painful but marginally less embarrassing door, you were instead caught in a pair of arms for the second time in less than 6 hours. A sharp exhale was heard as you made contact with the firm chest. There was only a second for you to take in the scent of deep musk and fall leaves before you were reeling back and apologizing. "Crap, I'm so sorry, we were just messing around and Shit. Standing before you was none other than the number 2 hero and your new boss, Hawks. Great job, Evan. You just body slammed the person signing your paycheck. Standing before you was... He seemed just as surprised as you were, eyes wide as he stared back down at your mouth slightly agape. You were vaguely aware of the way his hands clenched around your upper arm, but were too shocked to process it. You knew he was a good-looking guy. Part of his popularity came from the attention he got from his looks and suave attitude, but being this close to him really gave a new appreciation to the winged hero. And boy, did the photos not do him justice. His hair was wild and everything, and he had just gotten back from a flight, and looking softer than the clouds he flew through. The soft black and creams of his outfit gave a muted palette, only making the vibrant crimson wings sprouting from his back stand out much more. Golden brown eyes were sharp, staring at you with such intensity. They took your breath away, pinning you to the spot. The light scruff that tickled your forehead when crashing into him did nothing to soften his chiseled lines of his jaw. All in all, a handsome man. A handsome man you were standing very close to and staring for a very long time. Thankfully, Tokuyami came to your rescue because there was no way in the foreseeable future you were going to pull away. "Hawk, sir." He pulled you away, drawing you behind him as tried to explain to his boss. "I'm sorry, it was my fault. We were messing around and I shoved Ellen a bit too hard and..." "Ellen, I haven't seen you around before." No sir, I'm new here. Today is my first day. I was looking forward to meeting you, but I can safely say this isn't how I imagined it to go." You awkwardly laugh, unsure of what to do, as Hawks continued to just stare. "Tokoyami was just showing me around. You have a lovely agency, very well organized," you offered nervously. Still, his unwavering gaze was starting to become unnerving. "Yes," Tokoyami piped up. "We should really get on with that if we want to finish before lunch." Before anyone in the now silent office could say anything else, you had your hand taken by Tokoyami and you were hightailing it down the hall. As soon as you were around the corner and safely in your shelter of the stairway, then and only then did you allow yourself to breathe. "Well," you panted, sending a shaky smile his way. "At least I met Hawks." Tokoyami groaned, head loudly banging against the wall and echoing through the small space, all the while you laughed. You have been working in the agency for a little over a month and a half now, and if you had known how nice it was, you would have gotten a job working for a top hero agency a long time ago. Everyone here was nice, and you found yourself making more friends than ever, becoming particularly close with Yumiko. You assumed it was her who always left coffee on your desk, still steaming every morning. When you asked her about it, she acted like she had no idea. Even Tokoyami was confused when you asked if it was him. They were the only ones who knew how you liked your coffee, though, so if not them, then who? Well, free coffee was free coffee, and there weren't any complaints from you. Hawks himself was surprisingly just as welcoming as your co-workers. Not that you expected him to be a jerk, but it was still a surprise how much time he spent sitting around in the office, It wasn't uncommon for him to find his way into your little space, wings taking up a large amount of space and giving both a claustrophobic and comforting air at the same time. You never talked about anything in particular, just casual conversation like that between two friends, while you did your reports. He spent so much time in there, you got him his own little seat, so he wouldn't have to stay leaning against the wall the entire time. Apparently, he took that as a go-ahead to move in the rest of his things. Always bringing something whenever he visited, whether it was something he picked up from a restaurant or something that caught his eye for your space. You need to decorate more in here. It's not good for your mind if you're being surrounded by blank walls all day, was his explanation. So far, you had a maze and impressive collection of trinkets, including your own personal coffee maker, so he wouldn't have to walk all the way to the break room if he wanted some. A collection of interesting rocks and pressed flowers that he found on his flights. A calendar with each month boasting a different picture of Hawks himself in action, and so much more. His ever-growing pile of blankets you often helped yourself to sat like a nest in a seat. Use of the training room here has increased your strength exponentially. Hawks himself inviting you to train with him in Tokoyami. You assumed it was to ensure that he had no weaklings in his ranks, but it was always a pleasant sight watching the newest configuration of flying patterns he had put together. He was always asking your opinion afterwards, beaming like a child when you voiced your amazement. You also got all benefits right away, such as medical and dental, and the insurance you paid was marginally lower than it was at any other agency, surprisingly. Hawks even got you a new smartphone after he saw your outdated flip phone, claiming he needed you to have a reliable way for him to communicate with you if you were ever in an emergency. With the bump you took in pay, you didn't have to worry about having enough to pay for rent and food for the first time in years. Tokoyami had made a comment about your increase in energy and healthier look you had. I'm telling you, Fumi, I really owe you one. My life has gone so much better since I started working here, you told him, leaning back into your seat. It was one of the only reclining ones in the office and had mysteriously just showed up in your cubicle, which was now conveniently located next to Tokoyami, who you had only spent 2 days in your cold and distant little office space. When you came in on day 3, all of your things had been moved next to Tokoyami's, right under the heaters. I'm glad you enjoy it here, FN. Your presence brings a new wave of life here. Yeah, Tokoyami, Ellen. Hawk's head poked through the corner, interrupting your conversation. Suit up for patrol. But I thought Koro and Shizu were to go on patrol. Right you are, Tokoyami, but with the increase of villains, I wanted my best sidekicks out on the job with me. He winked your way and was gone in a flurry of feathers. You sighed. Ever since you had gotten injured in a tussle with a rock villain 2 weeks ago, he had forced you to go on patrols with him. Nothing major, just a couple of scrapes and bruises. But you acted like you were dying, not leaving your side the entire time you were getting patched up and getting in the way of the examiner as he fretted in his own way. Resigned to office work for a full week, you were itching to get out there on the field again. Wishful thinking on your part to think you would do anything spectacular. As you knew, a majority of patrols with Hawks were easy. He wasn't called the speed hero for nothing. A lot of the times, he already take care of the threat before you even had the chance to realize it was there. Sure, it made things easy, but it was also boring. Thankfully, after stepping out into the light snowfall that had started this morning, you discovered that you would be splitting up to cover more ground. Apparently, even Hawks himself didn't like the cold, if the light tremble in his lips was anything to go by. If anything happens, call me immediately on the comms. Yes, sir, you and Tokoyami agreed, splitting off in different directions. At first you were excited, eagerly bounding down the street and waving to those who passed. Being the ground hero made you more available to the public, and you were quickly learning all the names of all the people that lived and worked in your patrol area. As time continued on without incident, your energy began to ebb away bit by bit. Soon enough, you were just another person, shivering in the cold and counting down the time until you could go back to the cozy agency. You were so distracted by the cold, you almost didn't hear the cry for help. It took your brain a second to process, "Hey, that's for me!" Picking up the pace and following the shouts and stream of people running, you rounded the corner just in time to see a car come flying your way. Ducking, you felt the rubber of the wheels skim your ear as you flew over your crouched form. Eyes scanning the scene, your mind quickly analyzed the scene in front of you. A bank robbery. How typical. And not well planned by the looks of it. Clearly, they were just planning on muscling their way out of this, judging by the amount of destruction already scattered around. In the middle stood what looked like a large man made out of metal, clutching numerous bags of what you assumed was cash in all four arms. It seemed that everyone had already cleared out, and a quick scan from your optics assistant confirmed it, which means no need to hold back, you smirked, boldly stepping forward. "You metalhead." Said villain whipped towards you, yellow eyes locking on. "I'll give you one chance to surrender now and return the money. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." He took a moment, cocking his head to the side before opening his mouth and letting out a deafening yell. "All right," knuckles cracking, you got into this fighting stance. The hard way it is. "Excuse me, do you have time to answer some questions? Do you have any comment on the rising number of villains this winter? You're new to Hawk's agency. Do you feel your victory today was because of the opportunity to train under around so many other strong heroes? Does this make up for the eating you took against the rock villain last month?" Reporters were swarming everywhere, pressing cameras and microphones in your face while blinding you with a flash of photos. Ever since the police had come and taken the uncautious villain into custody, that had been on you like fleas, constantly attacking and asking questions, leaving hardly any room for you to breathe, let alone answer. Well, it's been great working for Hawks, and, you were at a loss for words. It was your first time you had to deal with any major media presence yourself. Normally, any hero or sidekick you were working with at the time would take care of it. This time, you were alone, left to deal with the vultures yourself. They continued pressing, coming in closer and closer until there was practically no room left to back up, both figuratively and physically, backing into a wall. Your heart was beating faster than it was during the fight, and no matter how much air you took in, it never felt like enough. Just when black spots started to dance at the edges of your vision, you heard it. The familiar whoosh of air, followed by a flash of feathers. Hawks, the graceful one, landed between you and the reporters. His large wings fanned out, creating a current of privacy that blocked you from view. "I appreciate your interest in my newest and most promising sidekick, but until you can learn to interview without harassing them all, questions will be submitted through my office and reviewed by our public relations secretary." He turned around, and you thought he was just going to tell you to go back to the agency, maybe scold you for acting like such in front of the cameras instead. He swiftly scooped you in his arms, bridal style, and shot back in the air, leaving your heart back on the ground with the reporters. Admittedly, you were scared at first, keeping your face buried in his chest and clutching desperately to his jacket, trying to focus on the soft fabric between his fingers instead of the ground miles below. And he let you, allowing your heart to slow and breathing to return to normal on its own, as he flew in silence. Eventually, after being sure you weren't going to cry, you allowed yourself to pull your face from his chest. Your breath was torn from your lungs, not from fear or the cold, but the view. The view. It was unlike anything you had ever seen before. You were higher than even the tallest floor of the agency. Below, in the slowly dying light of the sun, the whole city was spread out like the most intricate painting ever created. Lights turned on one by one as the shadows of the night continued to creep further, with the people milling about in the streets, nothing more than bugs. Up here, at this height, the sound of the city hardly reached your ears. It was muffled, creating a sense of uncommon in the bustling streets and buildings below. "I know," Hawk spoke, startling you. His voice was deep and oddly calming. You could feel it vibrating from his chest against your cheek, which was now pressed firmly against him. No matter how much I fly, I never get used to the view. It's like its own little world up here. No people yelling or running everywhere in a hurry. No cars or bikers to look out for. Just you and your thoughts. It was almost like he wasn't speaking to you. His gaze remained locked on the horizon, staring at nothing and everything at the same time. Unsure of what to say, you just let your eyes wander. Inevitably, they locked onto the only other thing around you. Your wings, you suddenly said, not really meaning to say it out loud. I never realized how big they were. Big and strong. His arms tightened around you. The exhaustion of fighting and dealing with the media was catching up to you as the adrenaline fogging your mind and loosening your tongue. They're really pretty too. The room reminds me of the sunset, you hummed, reaching towards the distant feathers. No wonder you hardly ever get cold. It's like it's carrying the sun with you. Your eyebrows furrowed in thought. No, not carrying the sun. Like you are the sun. His heart rate sped up, but other than that, he remained silent. Thank you for what you did back there. I've never been very good at dealing with the media, and I kind of just froze. So thank you for rescuing me. Your eyes began to drift close, snuggling deeper into his jacket and escaping the cold wind. You would feel utterly embarrassed for acting this way later, acting a fool in front of your boss and friend who you were positive saw you as nothing more than that. But for now, you let yourself relax, completely missing the way his head tilted down, taking in your face with an unfamiliar gentleness and gazing at you like you were the only thing that mattered. For you, anything. I can't believe this. The entire office probably heard you complaining, but you were much too upset to care. What's got you in such a mood? Well, more than normal. Sending a glare from your seat at the table where Sheena was making his tea, he simply shrugged off the threat like it was nothing. If I were any less tired, I would come over there and kick your peacock ass. Love you too. He blew a kiss your way, stepping aside. He allowed Hina to get her caffeine fix. It was just after lunch and everyone had gathered in their break room to grab a drink to get them through the afternoon. Being as they were some of your closest and only friends, you decided to share your latest predicament with them. I don't see what the big deal is, Yumiko sighed, pulling the tabloid over to get a better look. A couple of the others standing over her shoulder to see as well. You have already sent a message to Tokoyami, who was currently in school. The only thing he had to give in response was that he would help you figure it out what to do after he got out of classes. Apparently, when Hawks came to your rescue last week, one of the photographers had snapped a photo of him flying away, face set in a stern line and arms wrapped protectively around you. Above, in bold white letters, was the title currently causing your miserable state. Hawks, new hire, sidekick, or soulmate? It's like they think we're dating. Shira raised an eyebrow at your groan. You're not? Jerking straight up, you looked for any sign of joke in his face, only to find none. You have to be kidding me, right? He's the #2 hero, not to mention my boss. He may be friendly, but it's not like he's shown any interest other than friendship in... You gestured wildly at yourself and further your point. Me. A beat of silence, all attention in the room was now focused on you. Then... Are you blind or something? Nezuko asked. His clawed hands gestured as he squinted his eagle-like eyes at you, as if he were trying to find the truth by looking right into your brain. Puffing and crossing your arms as the insulting question you spilled out. No, what kind of question is that? It's just that, well... It's just that, well, I think his intentions are quite obvious. Yumiko gently placed a hand on your arm. Intention? What the heck are you all talking about? Dear God, she's kidding, right? Someone tell me she's kidding, Shiro groaned. Hina looked just as concerned. She has to be, obviously. It couldn't be any more clear. Hawks has been prancing around, proud as a peacock, telling everyone that would listen how you complimented his wings. Will someone tell me what you're all talking about before I have to beat it out of you? It was annoying the way they were talking about you like you were a child, blissfully unaware of the world around them. Effin, how could you not... Yumiko paused, eyes narrowed into slits with concentration before popping back wide-eyed. Holy shit, how did I not realize it before? Turning to the others, she was almost laughing. Guys, her quirk has nothing to do with an animal, let alone burns or flight. She barely got it out before breaking into laughter, the others soon joining her. Now the entire break room was full of what you thought were your friends, all laughing at your expense. And here I thought, Shiro wheezed, nearly doubled over. Here I thought you weren't interested. Hina and I thought you were trying to play hard to get. Nezuko was in a similar state, his coffee laying long forgotten on the table. Alright, I'm done being the butt of your joke. Standing and pushing your chair back angrily, you were ready to storm out and see if you could go home early when Umiko stopped you. We're sorry. It's not funny. It's just that we never even thought of what it would look like from your perspective. Settling you back down, she pushed down her own amusement and explained. So you know how people with mutation quirks sometimes gain more than just attributes. Sometimes it's a habit or a mannerism. You nodded. It was one of the things in your quirk diversity class that you learned. Think about it. We're all associated with aviation and birds, somehow. It's almost a given when you work for hawks. What do you think birds do when they show interest in somebody? Well, you spoke slowly, taking time as you thought about it. Birds normally show interest in different ways, like building house, fighting in bright colors, but I don't see... That's when everything fell into place. The flying and protective nature, walking you home after work with the claim his house was in the same direction, all the little gifts that appeared whether you asked for them or not. Hell, he had practically moved into your office, and thinking the entire time he just got lonely in his large one. He's trying to date me? Hallelujah, they finally got it. Stop being mean, Yumiko scolded. How do you feel if... Wait. FN? Where are you going, FN? Ignoring your friends, you got up once again, leaving your drink forgotten on the table. It was like you were walking in a daze, the entire way back to your desk. Sitting in your chair, you looked around. Your slowly built direction seemed to burn as a constant reminder, taunting you of your own foolishness as you slowly tried to process the new information. Hawks. The man you had grown to have a crush on over the past 2 months, despite your best efforts to smush the feelings down, liked you back. This had never happened. All your life had been so focused on working and taking care of your parents, never having time to think about dating. Now arguably one of the most attractive and sought-out heroes was trying to date you. The entire time, you were too blind to see it. You must have sat there longer than you realized, because when a light knocking on your wall finally brought you back... You must have sat there longer than you realized, because when a light knocking on the wall finally brought you back, the office was almost completely dark. Winter clouds covering the sun made it was much harder to see. Harder, but not impossible. And it was hard to miss the brilliant crimson rings that you had grown to so used to constantly having around, flashing in the corners of your vision. Hey. Hawk's voice was quiet, like he was talking to a skittish cat. You were vaguely aware of how silent the office was. Everyone must have gone home already. You said nothing, only continuing to stare at the blank screen in front of you. You could see the outline of his figure behind you in the inky blackness. He cleared his throat, making you flinch. Hawk's mate for life. Did you know that? Silence. He shuffled feathers, brushing the walls as he moved further into your space. He was now standing right next to his seat. The jacket he had allowed you to use when you expressed interest in the material of his own, still laying on top of the blanket nest. The others told me what happened in the break room. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable, Jess. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, his soft, golden hair. From the very moment I saw you when you bumped into me on your first day, I knew you were perfect. Then every moment I spent with you after that, it only proved it more. More shuffling from his as your heart rate continued to increase. Kind yet strong, shy but open. You were nice to me without even expecting anything in return. I tried so hard to prove that I could be the perfect mate for you. His chuckle was humorless, with a touch of sadness that made your heart ache. Then that day after your run-in with the media, you complimented my wings. After so long I thought you were reciprocating my feelings. I guess it was stupid of me to think you would be interested after all. I've been trying for weeks to get your attention and you made it clear you're not interested. Out of your peripherals, you could see flashes of red as he stood right behind you. Gathering every ounce of courage you had, you quickly spun around and stood from your seat, nearly knocking into the man himself. You had known he was close, but the way your nose brushed up against the fabric of his shirt made you jump back slightly. His body was slightly tilted, opening the path and allowing you to leave if you wanted to. Slowly tilting your neck back, your eyes made their way up to his chest, over the smooth skin of his neck and a soft curve of his lips, before locking with his own burning gaze. He stared back with such intensity, golden eyes glowing and combined with the musk that had found its way over every surface of your office over the past few months. It made your knees feel like jello. I don't know about love, you stuttered, arms slowly coming up to wrap around his back, resting just below the base of his wings and causing him to stiffen. But how about a date? He stood still as stone before allowing himself to relax and fold into your body. His face dropped to rest in the juncture of your neck, lips tickling your skin and causing goosebumps to erupt across every inch of your body. A date would be perfect. And that is the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm drinking Monster right now, but I'll see you all next time. Please remember to read the description. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!